Welcome, low ego. Oop, did I do it? Oh no. Unmute. Yeah, unmute me. Welcome, low ego action hero. So I haven't been at this desk in a month. What am I doing? It's the dog meme. I don't know what I'm doing. Welcome, everybody, to episode 189 Becoming a Product Manager from the UX Universe. I'm Debbie Levitt, your hostess. I'm from Delta CX. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. We do projects, training, and consulting. So you can check us out at deltacx.com. Hi, Ana Lucia. Yeah, it's been a while. I tried to broadcast a bit while being away. That only went so well. So I am back at my desk. And you know, when I'm wearing headphones, it means we've got guests today. So I'm super excited to introduce them in just a moment. But as usual, hey, Kayleen. Kayleen says I'm alive. That is minimum viable Kayleen. I expect you to be alive, but okay. Hi, Rima. How are you doing? So I haven't updated this in a long time, and now I'm embarrassed. But thank you to everybody, past, present, and future, who has supported the channel on YouTube by pressing the join button and throwing a few American dollars at me each month. Totally optional, but very appreciated. Keeps me in streaming software and chocolate chips. I've also got the messages in the middle today because we're going to have three guests. We have a whole panel. So I'm here, I promise. Hi, Joel. Okay, so that's enough about that. Hi, Malika. Yeah, hi to everybody. I'm so happy to see everybody. I'm excited to be back at my desk. Yay! Oh, and the emojis are here too. So let's meet today's guests. And I'll go around the room, a virtual room, and have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their background before we throw a lot of questions at them. So, hi to people joining. Oh, hello to South Africa. Okay, Tara, tell us all about you.
Hi, I'm Tara Butler Ridings. I am currently Director of Product Management at an agency called Wunderman Thompson. I focus on leading the product discipline for the United States Marine Corps. I have a very windy background. Yes, I have a very windy background. I started in data analytics, dabbled in UX design, dabbled in software development, business analysis, and then product management. And that's where I've been for the past 7+ years.
What haven't you done? All right. So super to meet you. Thank you. Next up, let's introduce, I don't know if you want me to say Dr. Marnina Herman, who some of you might be following or connected with on LinkedIn. She's one of our most clever and funny LinkedIners up there with Hung Shu. So, Marnina, other than making us laugh as you always do, tell us more about you.
So, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm Marnina. I am currently based in Israel, but I am originally from Toronto. I have been a product manager at a B2C company called Barges for the last 6 weeks. Prior to that, I was doing UX research. I've also, like Tara, had a bit of a winding career path. I've done consumer insights research. I've done graphic design and, of course, a doctorate in psychology of creativity.
Awesome. Fantastic. And our good friend of the show, Madalina, let's see if I get this right. Gullier?
It's good enough.
Oh, I'm so bad with names. Everybody knows it. Many of you will know. I'll just say Madalina. You get one name like Madonna. So many people will know Madalina from our very famous show a couple of years ago on why the Google Coursera course was terrible. And if you're active in our Slack community, you probably know her as well. And our Slack and Discord are free to join. Just go to deltacx.com/links and join the fun. So Madalina, tell us all about you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Madalina Galia. That's spelled Madalina. I'm currently a product manager for a software delivery company. I discovered the Delta CX community after I finished one of the many UX boot camps in 2020. And before that, I worked as a project manager in data analytics, language translation, and stuff like that. And right now, I am opening my coaching and counseling business. So, yeah, happy to be here.
New Worlds. Yeah. And we have Niku here, who's a friend of the show, also tuning in from Toronto. Hello. And hello to some other people who've left some messages. I don't know who said hi from Denmark. For some reason, it's just showing me LinkedIn user, which it does sometimes. So I think the first question I want to ask, and I want to go, Noisy Doll wants to know, what is software delivery? Madalina, can you say a little more about what your company does? Optional.
Yeah, sure. It is focused on ensuring that software delivery teams, and that includes engineer, product managers, delivery managers, get the best out of their data. And we do data visualization tools and intelligent analytics that gets them from a path of low data maturity to high data maturity, and they're able to make better decisions based on data as opposed to gut feeling. I'm not sure if that is helpful, but
We
that's
accept it.
software delivery. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And hello to Two Birds joining us from lovely Manitoba. Thank you for joining us today. So let me go around the room again. And I want to ask kind of a little bit more about that pathway into product management. How did you end up there? Were you specifically looking for a product manager job? Was it something you slipped and fell into? Tell us a little bit about how you got there. Tara.
Sure. I will say that a lot of the younger years in my career, I kind of just went with where my passions took me. I started in data analytics right out of college in the HR space. So I often say people analytics is where I started, and in that I had to manage the redesign of an internal career and development website, and that's where kind of my love for design and development started. So I did a little software development, as I told you, but realized I like to talk a little too much. I didn't want to just code all day. I wanted to talk to users. I wanted to talk to people. So I found, by way of customer success management for a short period of time and business analysis, that was a good kind of starting point, right? Talking to users, understanding their needs, and documenting their requirements, and a little bit of solutioning there. But I became a product manager uh, by way of reorganization within the company I was working for. So I went home one night as a business analyst. I came in the next morning as a product manager, and a lot of my learning was on the job, which is how my brain works well anyway. So a lot of learning on the job, but I started product management in the agency space. I've kind of jumped around from SaaS, software as a service, to agencies working with various clients throughout the entirety of my career. But that's the long and short of it.
Okay, thanks. And Marnina, I feel like many of us who follow you or are connected to you on LinkedIn, we watched you become a product manager in slow motion. But tell us more about your journey there and your recent job search, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So I went to like traditional design school a while back now. I realized very quickly, like before I even graduated, that it was the research and strategy side of things that really interested me. And so that kind of has been a common theme throughout my career path. And in my previous company, I had started to think like, okay, like I'm now a senior UX researcher. What's next? And at least in Israel, there's opportunity for career growth within UX research. Most of the positions that are available in the country are for senior UX researchers, individual contributor roles. And I got the idea, transitioning into product management. And then when our company had a mass layoff and there were literally no UX research role like in the country, I was like, all right, we're doing.
Yeah, sorry, they're blipping a little bit. I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi or internet. I've turned down the bandwidth of what I'm sending back to you, but I think most of us got that. And that was an interesting journey to watch. And you almost looked a little concerned about how everybody would take it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, at least in the US, there's definitely some anti sentiment. So it's interesting to be on both sides.
Cool. Thanks. So we'll get back to you. And hey, audience, this is a live show. If you have some questions for our panelists today, get them in the chat and I'll make sure that we ask them as soon as possible. But over to you, Madalina. Tell us, Madalina, a little more. I'm never going to get that right. Oh, thank you, Sarah, for subscribing to the channel. Madalina, please tell us more about your movement into
Mhm.
product management. Remind us what you were doing before that.
Before that, I was a project manager in the data analytics space, and I was quite unsatisfied because I thought there were too many slides and too little users in the picture. So I really wanted to do something that would get me closer to their needs, you know, and solving their problems. And that was when during the pandemic, I decided to take one of those UX boot camps, you know, and I thought that that was going to lead me to find a job in UX design, and that went horribly wrong, and it didn't happen. And I realized, okay, maybe now is not a good time to get into UX. What I could do is get into product management because, you know, it's change of scenery. I could be closer to users in some way. And I was very surprised to see that many product management roles were actually demanding things that I would have expected to see in a UX design job description. And now I'm in a position where I didn't ask for it, I didn't seek it, but I'm doing UX tasks at a far more often than I would have expected.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why we're doing this show because we're finding that at some companies, things, tasks, and responsibilities that we associate with UX work or product design work or research work are the responsibility of a product manager. And I think a lot of UX people wonder if they should apply to product manager jobs or if they even qualify for them. So let me go around the room again and let me ask you, when you've transitioned into a product management role, what new skills did you need to learn or improve? Tara.
All of them, all of mine, personally. Um, Stakeholder management, I think, was the biggest one. Understanding business goals, business strategy, prioritization, working with those stakeholders and the business goals. Those were, I would say, the biggest things that I had to learn. I also, right, was not a UX designer, so there were a lot of, again, tasks that we would think a UX designer would do that were under my job description now. So I collaborated really closely with our UX designers to learn things like the basic UX research methods. Um, you know, co-design sessions, card sorting, basic usability testing, learning those things more on the job as well.
Okay, that was going to be my follow up question to each of you, which was like, did you just kind of pick these things up as you went, or did you take a formal course or watch someone's videos?
All of it, all of it. Well, I'm a lifelong learner, and I think that's why, product management and really the UX world. I always said I was a UX focused product manager, and people didn't. I got a lot of questions about that like 7, 10 years ago, and now I'm seeing it more. People saying they're UX product managers, but I digress. Sorry about that. Uh, I I read books, I joined communities, I got some mentors, did some LinkedIn learning. I did. I did not do any boot camps at all, but I did a lot of, I would just say, UX research on it in particular. Right? I just went and I talked to a bunch of people, read a bunch of books, learned more about the community, and that's how I gained a lot of skills. I don't think you can see back there, but all of those books are mainly UX UX experience books.
Okay, got it. Thanks. And Marnina, I know you're 6 weeks into what I think is your first product management job. I wonder if you're pulling from your background in strategy, but tell us more about some of the skills you've realized you need to improve or learn and what you're doing about that.
Sure. So I think for me, as someone who worked as a user researcher embedded in a product team over the like full life cycle of the product, I have like a relatively good understanding of like the product life cycle. But I think I underestimated the constant need to reprioritize because as a user researcher, I could say, okay, I'm not going to work on this now. We'll do it later. But as the product manager, like you can't put things aside for later because then you'll have like teams of developers or designers or whomever just not working. So you constantly have to be like shifting and moving forward and working on this and working on that and working on this. And it's a lot of like shifting your focus all the time. So I think for me that's like one of the biggest kind of new challenges.
Got it. So it sounds like maybe some of the project management and kind of looking out into the
Yeah,
future of where what the team's going to need down the road.
exactly.
And are you taking any courses or certifications to help you with that, or you're just going with your natural strategic nature or something
So
else?
I think I feel like I'm at the point where I still don't know what I don't know. So I'm kind of just focusing on where I am and asking lots of questions and using the fact that I'm new as an excuse to mess up here and there. And eventually, once I kind of learn the landscape more, I can see like, okay, this is where I need to focus on leveling up.
Okay, cool. I hope you'll keep us posted. And Madalena, same question to you. New skills, improving skills, courses.
Mhm. I think for me, what I really had to hone were actually research skills because I had the project management experience from before, but even that, I think the ability to negotiate with stakeholders, especially business-oriented stakeholders and engineering-oriented stakeholders, that's a really important skill to have because usually product sits between those and it's a constant fight, I would say, sometimes what gets to win and products at the middle of that. And in terms of sources that I use, they say Delta CX community, hands down, best resource ever. And I was also very intentional with whom I chose to follow on Medium and LinkedIn because the internet is full with people to follow, let's say. And a big part was just learning on the job and asking questions and trial and error.
Great. We're getting some questions from the live audience. So thanks. So Shashank is asking, how do we transition from UX research to a PM role? Any advice or courses that might help? I think the main person we have today who's done that is Marnina. Marnina, do you have a sense of how you did it, or was it just like, I'm going to apply for this and go for it, or you tell me?
So, as I said, I was lucky that as a user researcher, I was embedded on a specific product team that was building a new product. And so I had experience with the full product lifecycle, and I was very involved in the like day-to-day activities of the product team. So things like going to dailies, being involved in like a retro when something fell apart. So all of those like little things that I may not have been exposed to had I been a UX researcher somewhere else. So I
Or
think
more
that was
siloed?
really helpful. Exactly. So that was really helpful. And I think the other thing that people asked me about a lot was being able to, explain things in great detail for the dev team. Um, and so one of the projects that I was involved in was choosing and like having the dev team implement an in-product feedback system. And so I did have that experience working directly with the developers to do that and to explain like, okay, this is where we need this and we need, this JavaScript for that. And so having had that experience was really helpful when I made the transition. So if you are currently working as a UX researcher and thinking of making that transition down the road, I would say learn those like rituals that product teams do and go through and make every effort possible to do some kind of project directly with the dev team.
That's a great point, since a lot of times the designers are very closely connected with the dev team and collaborating with them, but the researchers are sometimes left on an island somewhere and left out of a lot of things. So it sounds like you were very fortunate to have some of those experiences where you could then show the new company, I've done this. I've done I've done this and I can do this.
Exactly.
So that's super. We did have another question. It's off the screen now, but I can see it. It's from Shweta. And she asks, did you have to start as a junior PM, or could you move more laterally because you had that UX research experience? So is your new title junior PM?
Just PM. But I think all these junior, senior, every company does their own thing. So it's kind of meaningless almost.
It does feel that way sometimes. Yikes. So while we're waiting for some more questions from the chat room, let me ask another question. What would you say is, I don't want to ask your biggest mistake. You might not be comfortable talking about that, but what would you say is maybe an oops, or a real learning moment? And this might be more for Tara and Madalina, since Marnina is 6 weeks into the new job and I'm sure she's just perfect. Or if you want to answer, you can. But can you think of an oops, a real learning moment that might help some of our viewers? Tara.
Um, well, it was a learning moment for me early in my product management career that I would say ignited the UX passion or got me to learn more about research and things like that. I sunsetted a feature because that is what the business asked for. And a big majority of users were very unhappy with this decision, very unpleased, and we had to roll back that decision. I did not do any proper user research before we rolled out that change, and that was the biggest learning point for me. I would say that a lot of the items that came down on a roadmap, if everybody's familiar with a roadmap, items that were coming down to me on a roadmap, especially when you're on, the junior, mid level, even senior level sometimes, you're executing somebody else's decisions pretty much when it comes to the roadmap. And I have always been a big asker of why. I think that's another reason product management is a great fit for me and the UX world. And that just drive to understand why is what led me into just being more passionate about the user and doing proper research to know what it is they actually want and need and desire out of a solution.
Cool, thanks. Marnina, any learning moments you want to share with us in your first 6 weeks?
It's one big learning moment at the moment.
Got it. Jumped in the deep end. All right, we'll move over to Madalina. Any learning moments you remember, especially from earlier in the PM career?
Um, I won't share a specific moment, but I do think that starting out, um, there were moments when I just when I didn't understand the complexities of the things the engineering team were doing and the implications of that. And I was too afraid to ask, "What do you mean? I don't understand this." And it ended up biting me real hard. So I would say, as a tip, just don't be afraid to say, "I don't understand this. Can you please explain it to me?" Um, it's really important. It will save you a lot of headache in the long run, believe me. I would say that's my biggest moment.
Yeah, we have a question. There's lots of questions now in the chat room. Shweta wanted to know if you find that you can make decisions and approvals as a PM. Now she says compared to UX researcher, which would be Marnina, but I'll say to everybody, compared to the previous jobs that you might have held, do you feel like a PM job puts you in more of a position to make decisions?
Yes and no. Um, I would say kind of one of the buzz phrases that you'll hear a lot around a product manager is, "I knew this was going to happen." It totally left my brain the second that I that I brought it up. Um, so I'm going to pass it to Madalina while I wait for it to come back to me, and I'll jump back in.
Um, I agree with the yes and no part because in a sense, I've never been a fully fledged UX researcher, so just a disclaimer. Um, I think there are moments, write it down. I think there are moments when product managers aren't able to make the decisions. That doesn't happen all the time, so there's a constant compromise to be had, and that actually leads me to another mistake I would tend to make starting out is that I would really put my heels in the sand and be like, no, it's got to be done this way because I think it's right. And with time, I've learned, okay, a little bit of give and take does actually move the project forward. And it can be annoying at times, but life's not perfect. So it really depends on the company culture as well. I would say some companies are more dictatorial than others, unfortunately.
I've been there. Marnina, it's week 6, but do you feel like you have or might have the power to make more decisions than you did as a UX researcher?
I I personally don't necessarily think I would have more power because I was doing UX research in a place that was really collaborative, and that took UX research seriously, and that had somebody at the senior leadership level that was advocating for UX and UX research exclusively. So I think I was lucky, and that also may have been part of the reason why I wanted to move into product management because I see what so many other UX researchers experience, and I did not want to experience that myself.
Makes sense. Yeah, show's half over. We got more questions in the chat, and Shashank is asking something that I had written down, which was a little bit more about the business and analytical side of things from the perspective of we've had some of you mention, oh, I needed to know more about stakeholder management and business goals and maybe even how the business works or makes money. Did anybody read any books or take any courses or certifications that were more business oriented, like an MBA or some sort of business focused thing? Tara?
I do not have an MBA. I will say I don't have a lot of formal training in my background other than in development and my psychology degree, my statistics degree. That's really the formal training that I have. Really, everything else was on the job learning. And that was again my curiosity and just wanting to understand why. I just I also don't like just going with the status quo. So it was just like, why do you do this? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? And just, yeah, a lot of question asking for me to get to the bottom of that. Before we move on, I remembered the phrase I was trying to say before, which was influence without power. That's the phrase you'll hear a lot about a product manager when it comes to decision making. Um, it all comes to influence, and I think that whether you're a product manager, a UX researcher, UX designer, I think that the power in decision making comes part from the stakeholder management and then part from storytelling. If you know how to tell a story in a way that resonates with your stakeholders, you're going to have a better chance at them buying in to your decision. uh, I will stop.
Thank you for that. Marnina, any business education, business books, courses, anything help you there?
So my PhD was actually partially in the School of Architecture at the Technion and partially in in the Faculty of Industrial Engineering and Management. And while I mainly did like uh, behavioral science type courses, I did have a lot of exposure to some of the more side of things. So nothing like economics or accounting or anything crazy like that. But management and strategy and entrepreneurship and all that stuff. And I've always been interested in sort of the intersection of design and business. So it's something I've always read a lot about on my own.
Okay. Any books you would recommend?
I love The Opposable Mind by Roger Martin, who's also from Toronto. That's like one of the first kind of businessy books that I read, and it's great.
Okay, thanks for the recommendation. Madalina, business.
My formal education is in foreign languages, actually, so it couldn't be, it's a far cry from business. Um, so I didn't do any formal training, but I would say in London at least, I won't speak for every geography out there. Um, on the job experience is way more important and valuable than certifications. So if one can prove they've got the skills and they've applied them in some form of real life scenario, that tends to be more important than, oh, I've got this certificate or that certificate.
Yeah, I would agree. I even went and got an MBA, and I'm not sure anyone cares. So I think as long as you
Mm.
have the, yeah, as long as you have the knowledge and you can use the knowledge, I'm not sure anybody cares where you got it or what letters are after your name. So surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to go to Madalina for some counseling around that, perhaps. So we've got some more questions in the chat. Niku asks, for some of the panelists, having had experience as both a designer and a PM, what are some ways these two roles can support one another effectively? So any advice on PMs and UX, let's say researchers or designers, supporting each other more? Tara, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. For anybody familiar with agile or safe scaled agile framework, I know. We had to roll that out, and it's been a learning experience. I'm very much, frameworks are something to mold, right, to fit what you need and not follow super by the book, but I
Ooh,
digress.
safe doesn't like that.
What was the question again? My ADHD is acting up today,
I
you
am so
guys.
sorry about that. No, and I'm interrupting you. It's not good. So this was
It's
about
okay.
how PMs and UX
Supporting.
people of different types can work better together.
Yes. Okay. So what I was getting at with agile and safe is there's this kind of concept of the three amigos. And a while ago, that was, a product manager, an engineer, and a QA. And that kind of QA person has kind of been replaced with a UX person now, whether it be a designer or a researcher in that framework. All to say is I partner, collaborate with my UX designers and my engineering leads, right? Daily. I am talking to them daily. And I think the biggest, best thing you can do kind of for product managers and UX designers or researchers to support each other is have that transparency in what are you working on? What are the priorities? And especially since there's so much overlap in skill set, what can we divvy up between each other? For me, in the discipline that I'm building and uh, working with the UX director, right, and what they're building as well is, what are the most activities, deliverables with that overlap, and just knowing that a product manager or a UX designer can accomplish those things. I often will just let the UX designers do the more UX focused tasks, and we divvy those things up. So I would just say the transparency on what's going on, what's being prioritized, and trust, right? Trust in each other and knowing what the right things to divvy up between each other are.
Okay. Marnina, anything to add there?
I think for me the biggest thing is not making assumptions and not making promises for other people. So don't say, "Oh yeah, that's going to be really easy," but rather actually finding out if something is easy, if something is doable, how long will something take. So just you can make promises for what you're going to do, but don't make promises for what someone else is going to be doing.
I dig it. Yeah, let them estimate their own time and work. Madalina, something to add?
No, I don't think so.
Fair enough. All right, let's see other questions that came in. Let me see. Carly Grace Allen is here. What are pros and cons about being a PM? Anything you miss about not being a PM? So lots of questions in there, but we'll roll them all together. Tara, pros and cons of being a PM and things you might miss from previous non-PM worlds.
Um, it's just a lot of pressure. Your plate is always very, very full, and prioritizing your own plate is very important. And setting clear boundaries is also very, very important. I would just say that it kind of goes to what's unique about being a product manager, right? It's additional tasks and responsibilities that you have in addition to maybe those more UX focused tasks, right? There is the sprint ceremonies that Marnina mentioned, right? Those dailies, but also backlog refinement, sprint planning, release planning, priority changes from the business or the client or things like that. But I would say it's go to market strategy. Sorry, I have notes here that I need to go back and look at, but go to market, launching, roadmap creation. It's just so many more tasks and responsibilities to be responsible for, that it really does. I say this a lot. It feels like the job of three people, right? It's the job of a project manager. It's the job of a UX designer, and then the job of the product manager and whatever those are. But it's really, to me, like three jobs in one role. So it's just the sheer volume of work to do.
Wow. Yikes. All right. Marnina might be a little early in your universe, but early pros and cons.
I think for me, the biggest con is probably that you're a bottleneck as a product manager. And for better or for worse, as a user researcher, you're not a bottleneck. You should be, perhaps. People shouldn't be moving ahead without, proper knowledge of what needs to be done, but they will. And as a product manager, if you're not telling people what's coming next, nothing's coming next. So that's a little bit anxiety inducing.
Keeping all the
Mm-hmm.
juggling balls in the air.
The ultimate facilitator. If they're not doing it, things don't get done.
Mm-mm. Madalina, something to add there? Pros and cons from your world?
From my world, the biggest con is actually that influencing piece because it can be very taxing at times. It can be very taxing to try to tell people, but this is going to help your bottom line. Why aren't you agreeing? And it wears one out. So, word of caution, if people aren't really comfortable with being challenged almost daily, I would say maybe product management isn't the best career because that will happen quite a lot. On the flip side, I found it really, really enriching to have exposure to all types of teams working in product. So you get to talk customer success, you get to talk to sales, you get to talk to engineering, you get to talk with the board even. So it's a really nice exposure to all types of personalities and ways of thinking that I think ultimately is very enriching. So I really like that about the role.
Cool. I'm going to ask half of Kayleen's question. So, Kayleen wonders, is there a difference between product management as a discipline versus how companies perceive product managers?
Ooh.
Give you a moment to absorb that one.
Can you
Interesting
repeat it?
question. I can repeat it. Is there a difference between product management as a discipline versus how companies perceive product managers? I have to admit, I'm not totally sure what Kayleen means here, but if this sparks something, I hear Madalina thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah, discipline as in the way it's being taught, perhaps, in some of those courses, or what does discipline mean in this context?
Yeah, Kayleen, can you give us more information? Normally, our YouTube viewers are about 40 seconds behind. It's not as immediate as Twitch, so we'll just give Kayleen a minute or so to, maybe rephrase that question. And I'm going to jump to the last question we got from Shweta because I think that's a good one. What takes up most of your time as a product management? Corralling groups of people? Discovery? Road mapping? Something else? So, what's taking up a lot of your time, Tara?
It depends. That's another phrase you'll hear a lot, hopefully, from product managers and UX specialists. Yeah, well, that depends. Depends on the phase, a feature, or something. is in, right? So obviously, if it's in discovery, discovery is going to be taking up more of my time. But let's think more generally. Stakeholder management. That's what takes up a majority of my time is stakeholder management and prioritization. I'm having to shift things on the team's plate, my plate, whatever it may be, daily, multiple times a day. And I'm sure our other guests can attest to that in their worlds as well.
All right, let's go over to Marnina. What is taking most of your time?
Meetings take a lot of time.
Oh gosh.
Mhm. Yep.
When do you get to do your work?
After hours.
But between
Unless you have some
finding a way,
boundaries, don't listen to me.
yeah, no, like you have between finding a way to schedule meetings with like 900 people and then having the meeting and then communicating the action items from the meeting, a lot of meeting stuff.
Got it. Madalina, what is consuming your day?
Putting out fires, unfortunately. Every day has its problem. Every day something goes wrong. Every day, can you please make that decision now? After, you've been told of a problem 2 minutes in, you need to decide whether it's A or B. And that's really time consuming. Second place is meetings, indeed. There are way too many of those.
Solomon's asking, why are there so many meetings? Someone jump in.
Because you again are responsible for things across the entire product life cycle, right? So there's a lot of different people who need your input. Like Marnina was saying, you can be a bottleneck, and that's why there's so many meetings. Is because product can often be that bottleneck. Um, I'm trying to work on better ways of asynchronous communication, at least with my teams,
Mm.
and how we can prevent so many of those meetings. But I will also say to what Madalina was saying, I would say understanding urgency and trying to, like, really trying to understand why it's urgent to somebody can really, really help with having to kind of fight those urgency fires all the time because it's probably urgent to somebody, but understanding why can help you prioritize further. I think that's a really great point. I mean, yes, false sense of urgency, false fires, that's going to happen multiple times a day. So understanding what they think's urgent about it and instead shifting and say, when do you need this by? When's the latest you could get this by is something really helpful to keep in your back pocket.
Negotiation, an endless negotiation.
Yes.
Someone else is asking, why are there so many fires? I think Tara just covered some of it. Anybody want to add to why there are so many fires? Marnina, are you on fire yet?
Um, I think like the point of like this false sense of urgency really rings true. And I always kind of like to tell myself, like, I'm not working in a hospital. I'm not an actual firefighter. Like, nothing is going to happen if we release this version next week instead of this week. Like, the world will not fall apart. The company will not fall apart. Our customers will not
Mm-hmm.
abandon us. So it's really just about keeping a perspective on things.
That's a great point. And my manager actually told me something recently that helped me a lot. With that, is saying something like the difference between X and Y is negligible. Like somebody who's trying to get a meeting the day of with me on my calendar versus tomorrow or another day, I can say really that difference is negligible. Let's do it this day instead. So that's been another
Mm.
good thing another phrase that I'm keeping in my back pocket is the difference is negligible.
Got it. excuse me. So Kayleen clarified her question. She's curious about, based on your experiences, are you seeing a difference, and what is that difference, between the way your job might have been described in the job description and your real experience or role or duties? Tara,
Oh, you want me to go first? Yes.
if you want
Job
to, I've been going in the
descriptions.
circle.
Job descriptions are a catch-all. That's what I've learned. Even job descriptions I've written have really been a catch-all. And again, it depends on what am I focusing on at what point. You know, when I'm hiring somebody, a need maybe higher, higher priority somewhere else, right? And it may shift later. So that really comes down to asking the right questions in the job interview process to really understand what it is you're going to be focusing on, what are their goals, what are their OKRs even, and starting to ask those things and what you're going to be focusing on the most. Again, you can also ask what type of product manager are they looking for in this role. There's so many flavors. Like I've said, I'm a UX focused product manager. There's technical product managers, there's API focused product managers, AI or machine learning focused product managers, and you can really just split that up between the industries and the verticals there are. So just understanding what a business team is looking for, hiring manager is looking for, and asking questions to suss that out is going to be key.
Marnina, something to add?
Nope. Think she covered it.
Madalina?
Um, I agree that job descriptions tend to be more of a catch-all, and I think it's quite hard to capture all the details and all the nuances that a PM gets to do every day. That would be a very long document. What I do think is that there are common skills a PM is to possess in order to be successful in a PM role, regardless if it's a technical PM or UX focused PM or an API PM and so on and so forth. So those skills would be important to have. But I think the interview process is definitely more useful to suss out what the role entails specifically, as opposed to just reading the job
Mm-hmm.
description.
Thanks. I think with the amount of time we have left, we probably have room for one more question, and then we'll have to do lots of waving and tell everyone we'll see them soon. And I'm going to go with Shweta's question because I'm so happy that she asked it. How is your performance evaluated as a PM? Are you measured based on features released or the KPIs they meet? Do you face the heat if a release doesn't perform as intended? Tara, how are you measured and evaluated?
Well, that depends. It depends again on the type of product manager you are, right? A Let's say a growth product manager might be measured on different things, right? They're very much going to be measured on business growth and uh, things, and user growth and things like that. But yeah, it depends. Honestly, if you're at a company where you're being evaluated any formal way at all, you're lucky, right? So a lot of places don't do that.
Where's the accountability?
I would. I would say for me, like I do OKRs for the products or the properties that I manage, but also uh, internal operations, like product operations, OKRs as well. And so that's what I'm measured against performance wise is those OKRs that I set. Did I meet them? Did I not? If a release doesn't go out, yes, I would say the product manager is the one who's responsible. If you're thinking about a RACI matrix, they are responsible for that release being successful and going out. But it's more about, okay, now they go, how did this happen? You can do like, the five whys type of workshop or a retrospective to understand what went wrong and things like that. But again, it depends. What type of PM you are, where you're working, what you're focusing on.
Fair enough. Marnina, do you have a sense of how you will be evaluated and judged?
I do not. I should probably ask someone that question soon.
Ask that in your job interviews as well. Make sure you ask that.
Mm.
Good tip. Thank you. Madalina, how are you evaluated and judged?
I think there are two sets of objectives. So the first set is more quantifiable in that you are to process at least 30% of this from this bucket of feedback. Let's say I'm just making up examples, and that's very easy to track because you have done that or you have not. There's also a very subjective facet to it, and that's more relational because your manager can get to see day in day out how you're interacting with the other teams, which is very, very, very important because that can make or break a release or a feature. If you don't get along with engineering and you're always don't see eye to eye, that's going to impact. If you don't, you have disagreements with the business, that's going to impact as well. So it's very hard to give an exact recipe, and the answer, unfortunately, is yes, it depends. um, but from what I've heard from other UXers describing their experience in UX, I would adventure to say that product management is a bit more precise in that, but I might be wrong. It's just anecdotal from what I heard.
All right, so we are almost out of time. We have just a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to go around the room once more and just give everybody the chance to say A, anything you'd like to, and B, where people can find you or follow you or connect with you or buy something from you, plug away, as they say. So, Tara, you're first.
Sure. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Search Tara Butler Writings, and my face should pop up. I do mentor on ADP List. I know Debbie has feelings about ADP List, but I do mentor on there when it comes to product and UX and things like that. So you can search for me on there, and I would be happy to connect with any and all of you.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for offering that mentoring. Doesn't matter what I think of ADP list, they're connecting with you, and you are super. Marnina, tell us anything else you want to add, and where can we find you and your comedy stylings?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn and Marnina Herman, PhD. And unfortunately, now that I'm employed again, I am slightly less comedic than I was when unemployed. But hopefully, when I get back into routine, I will return to the LinkedIn comedy.
That was good. So again, everybody, Marnina is with an N, a bunch of N's actually, and so is Herman is
Lots of
HERRMA.
letters.
Yeah, HERRMANN, and then she looks like that. Madalina, last things you want to mention, and where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Madalina G. Get in touch if you want to talk product management, coaching, life, relationships, that sort of stuff. I'd be happy to help. And
Let's plug
as
your
a
new
conclusion,
venture.
Yeah.
yeah,
How do
yeah,
we
yeah,
find you?
yeah. I'm
You're getting into
venturing.
coaching and counseling and I think psychotherapy. How do we find you and improve our lives thanks to you?
So at the moment, I've got nothing set up
Oh,
because I'm spinning so many plates. But LinkedIn is the place. You can find me on LinkedIn. And we
okay.
and we can take it from there. Yeah, but I wish everybody who wants to transition into product management all the success, and it can be a really rewarding field.
Cool. Well, that is a beautiful, beautiful note to end on. We'll put in the hearts and the confetti for that. Thanks to a great live audience who had more questions than we could possibly handle. People from around the world. Thanks to everybody. Quick show notes before we do all of our waving goodbyes. We are going to have office hours tomorrow, but it looks like I have moved them earlier. So it looks like office hours are going to be 45 minutes before usual time. Look for that. Wednesday the 7th is our every other week group therapy where we all just meet and hang out and chat. We do that every other week. Again, all of these things can be found at deltacx.com/links or in our Slack or Discord communities. We have a live events channel where you can see what's coming up. And let's see. And then Friday will be critical thinking show. We haven't had one in many weeks. Shweta's on my case about having another one, but it is in the calendar for Friday. So thanks again to everybody for joining. And this is where we wave goodbye. Thanks. Bye.
Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are